with a bit of a storm brewing outside late in July, and with a bit of a storm potentially brewing with Jacob Zuma now in front of the Zondo Commission, it's time for the month ahead of August. And in this case, we're hoping that the rainy weather bodes for more in the month ahead, and Jacob Zuma bodes for less in the month ahead. But let's have a look at what we can expect. The month ahead for the country follows pretty much the pattern we've seen over the last month or so, although with some interesting extras now that we're seeing more about what's happening at that Zondo Commission. Certainly, the financial situation remains the same. It looks like the currency continues to remain strong and strengthen occasionally, probably in response to foreign things, because local investment is not looking great, both in terms of investment such as the stock exchange, as well as foreign investment in the country, just not looking ideal at this time. Overall, there's a lot of focus on financial matters, and hopefully that also means an opportunity to sort out some of those. But it does look like the big bailouts and payouts, etc., that the government is planning for Eskom, SAA, SABC, wherever all this money comes from, it looks like that might very well be the focus, because with such a strong focus on purse and treasury in the month ahead, it looks like perhaps the ruling party will begin to understand that money needs to be allocated a little bit more carefully. It does look like there's a lot right now that the government either doesn't understand, refuses to understand, or is just living in cloud cuckoo land. It is worrying that our president doesn't entirely seem to be able to understand or face reality, and that is strongly reflected in the South African chart for the month ahead. I optimistically like to believe that all that's really happening is he's playing his cards fantastically close to his chest. But looking at the month ahead now, we can see that he is also, perhaps by doing that, leading himself down the garden path, and he remains either deluded or deceived. And not surprisingly, well, maybe surprisingly, one of his greatest deceivers is his greatest opposition, and that would be Ace Magashule. Interestingly, in the battle against Zuma, Zuma's great nemesis was Pravin Gordhan, and both of them were Aries, in fact, in their case, born on the same day. So it was very much the case of warriors face to face, and Aries is under the planet Mars. Well, both Ramaphosa and Magashule are both Scorpios, and Scorpio is also under the planet Mars. Aries and Scorpio, the only two signs that are. So we end up with another face-off between two powerful forces. Firstly, both of whom, as typical of that sign, are capable of conveying a very different impression as to what's really going on in their minds and what's really going on behind the scenes. It is a much more threatening situation with Magashule's chart, which explicitly says he is inclined to lying, deception, and evading the truth. While it might be common in this government and well known about Magashule, it is disturbing to see it astrologically, because the planet which indicates that, which we see as the planet Neptune, very powerful in his chart, is very powerful in South Africa's chart over the course of the next month. So right now, with Zuma at the commission, and Zuma probably or possibly trying to create a split in the party or trying to bring down Ramaphosa's government, it's probable that Magashule is his ally, and Magashule is said to kind of be creating parallel structures and parallel party. That's speculation, but it is clear that there's an awful lot of deception going on, and whatever Ramaphosa might know, he doesn't know it all, and he is in danger. You might remember months ago, prior to the election, a few months prior to the election, I did indicate that in the period after the election, the president would face great opposition and secret opposition and great danger to himself or his presidency in the months afterwards. We're now in those months afterwards, It's reinforced by the charts we're seeing for this time. So we can continue to hope that the main thing that's going on is that the president is playing his cards close to his chest. He does understand the Magashule problem, and he has made moves to try and start various kinds of investigations into corruption that Magashule is involved in. But the situation as it stands now is extremely precarious, both because, as we know, Jacob Zuma is not averse to causing all kinds of trouble in his testimony at the Zondo Commission, and this might be a way to start sowing doubt and confusion within the party so that tables could turn. So right now, at this time, danger to the president is highest for a while, although the Magashule-Zuma process that's showing in the government and in Ramaphosa's chart does go on for about the next 10 months. So, and we'll see some highlights later in the year again. Later in this year, we'll see more influence of that, and a little bit next year as well. So we've started a 10-month very critical period for the president, as on the one hand he is trying to slowly maneuver his forces into place, and on the other hand his opposition, Zuma, Magashule and the others, are busy maneuvering their forces into place, and all of this happening under a Neptunian cloud where no one sees anything really, and everything is confusing and deceptive, and sometimes not real when it looks real, which is something that Neptune is about. So what can we say about all of this for ourselves? Well, the good thing is it's not surprising, and it isn't really news. We realize every day that there's a lot that we don't know. It's also true that it's a reminder not to place too much hope and faith in Ramaphosa being able to completely sweep the boards. As ever, there's more going on behind the scenes than meets the eye, and we've got to prepare ourselves for more surprises in the month ahead. Probably, which won't unseat the government, but as I've said a few times before, Ramaphosa is in for a few changes and adjustments. Hopefully, those changes are good ones. Hopefully he's going to institute some good changes himself. So hang tight, and let's hope that his surprises are all about him taking action and surprising us rather than being surprised by any action taken against him. On the subject of Aries, let's have a look at what the zodiac says for us in the month ahead, and for your Aries, much more important Aries to talk about, because it looks like a great time for Aries to pursue their ideals. You can finally put some long-held plans into practice. Let's not compare that with our former president, because you're going to be able to make things happen. And that means with your immediate environment, there's a lot of support being offered. You're in the right place at the right time, and that's what's going to make things work for you. You've probably taken a lot to get there. It's not just pure luck, but now that you've gotten there, it does look like there's way more luck on your side. A lot of that luck is coming to you through other people, people who want to help or who offer help in some kind of a way. That's going to benefit your professional life, but it also looks like it benefits your personal life. Whether your personal life has been smooth or not over the last while, it definitely looks as if things are improving. This could mean important new connections, important new relationships, and existing relationships getting a lot better. For those of you in business partnerships or who work with your personal partner, this is a time to really take some steps forward. Combine some plans and make some new plans, because the help from others is going to advance your agenda and benefit that relationship along the way. Taurus, it looks like there's some unfinished business that has reared its head or has just been sitting there the whole time, and you can no longer put it off. Whether that means dealing with something you've been avoiding for the longest time and it's not such a nice something to deal with, or just because it's boring, it's enough and you couldn't be bothered. Either way, you've got to face things, tie them up, and wrap them up. This is not the time to be carrying old baggage or allowing old baggage to enter new plans. So especially if you've got anything new planned or anything new on the go, you've got to take a pause and give yourself a little bit of time just to wrap up the old. This seems to be mostly connected to things like money and debt, either debt that you owe or is owed to you. It means that that needs to be sorted out. You need to call it in, or you need to pay it off, or whatever the case may be, but it looks like it might be around to haunt you if you don't. Other than money, other resources should be cleared out and cleared up at this time. You need to be clearer on what you have available to you and how you can rely on yourself in order to do that. This is definitely a time to be relying on yourself and once and for all getting it all wrapped up and put behind you for a much better time coming soon. Oh, Gemini, sometimes you can be your own worst enemy, and this is one of those times where it's very possible, but it's so not necessary to go down that road, because in many ways, everything is ready for you. Everything is open for you. It's time to go forward, go ahead and put yourself forward. But for some reason, you're not putting yourself forward. Some Geminis might be suffering from a little bit of poor self-esteem or something where you don't really believe the kind of press you've been putting out. And you've got to believe your own press. So this is the time to kind of stand up to what you said and just go for it. But apart from that, there might also be other reasons why you're distracting yourself and you're going off on side paths. Basically, the charts show there are too many side paths and too little focus right now. And you need to be focusing on goals that you need to achieve now and in the immediate future. That also means it's not the ideal time for long-term plans. You are distracting yourself with that, and you need to wind yourself in a little bit and focus on the matter at hand. Certainly one of the matters at hand is financial. Like many South Africans, over the next month or two, there's a strong focus on financial affairs, and for you Geminis, this could be a time when you get to sort out a lot of stuff as well. Looks like there are expenses that you have to make on home-related things, whether it's new furnishings or new homes or those kind of things. Some furnishings with regard, some expenses with regards to domestic life, but for the most part, that's going to build the security you actually need to go forward in the way that I suggest. It's still winter and still time to cuddle and snuggle and stay at home, which is what you like to do. It's all about the home for Cancerians, and this is a month where you're going to be wanting to stay indoors. But I'm here to say it's really a month when you need to be focusing on your goals and your not only your professional potentials, but elsewhere in your life where you've been trying to achieve whatever, where it looks like you need quite a stretch to get there. This is the time when that stretch is really going to work for you. You need to kind of act with a little bit of courage in order to take it. Courage is not short on your agenda this month. In fact, you might even seem to be a little bit more reckless or foolish than you usually are. Don't let feedback hold you back, and in fact, if necessary, act a little bit recklessly or foolishly. It's time to kind of bash through the barriers and get to what you've been trying to get to for a long time, because finally it is actually waiting for you. You're going to achieve your goals if you just cast doubts aside and act like an Aries, like everyone else. Just go for it and it's going to work. On the other hand, Leos, you should probably be staying home this month. This is a great month to kind of gather your forces back together and get ready for your new year, which starts with your birthday coming soon. So you might be feeling a little bit flat and low, as we so often do before our birthdays. Your energy is at its lowest and it's not a great time to be getting on with important stuff. But nevertheless, it could still be a great time for surrounding yourself with people close to you and people who are a good source of energy to you. But that means people you know and trust. This is where you need to get strength from, so because you're feeling a little bit kind of pup in some kind of a way. But never fear. It also is a time to kind of focus on own things, do what needs to be done at home. It's a little bit like do the stuff you need to do around the house. It's not necessarily that. It could also be your own personal goals, but it's a little bit of focus more on selfish needs. You still do need to sort out some financial matters, like most people at the moment, so that's also going to be an opportunity to do that. Despite everything, there's a lot of important local travel or people from nearby who are also going to be beneficial to you at this time. So don't get too isolated and wrapped up in the house. Once your birthday passes, it's time to get out there and make some new things happen. Also focused around the home and domestic matters, like many of us, this month is you, Virgo, and it looks like you're going to be spending money on the home that is really worthwhile money. So for some of you who are investing in property or in your home, or are thinking in any way of buying and selling property, well, this is a time when you can benefit from that or anything that is related to working with domestic and property. Many of us don't actually have our own property or homes, and that means you need to invest in the space. You probably don't want to put money into someone else's property, but then investing in the space means working from home or creating a space in your home where you're able to work from, if that's the kind of work that you're doing, if that's necessary. But either way, all kinds of invest in yourself, build something for yourself that you want a potential for the future is going to work. So that can also be some plans that you want to undertake, or anything that has got a long-term potential for you, because that's what it's all about, Virgo. While you might not see immediate results from the things you're doing this month, you've got a great chance of seeing long-term results. So that's why investment, but also things to do with long-term plans or anywhere else where you're just going to need a little bit of patience for the payoff, but the payoff will come, so hang in there. Well, Librans, there might be some financial challenges or other things that are not working exactly according to plan, but somehow it looks like you get to sail through it all. It's a great month ahead for Librans, especially if you're of the creative kind of Librans that most of you are. But this is a time to ensure that your creativity is, on the one hand, beneficial to the work that you're doing, and on the other hand, also making you feel good and having fun. Beneficial to the work that you're doing means, well, you don't even have to be an artist to be that kind of creative. It means your energy goes into what you do. It proceeds from you. It's your ideas, or you in control of what happens. But they do need to be selfish and fun. So it's not necessarily about the most important goals, and it might not be about the corporate work that you do or any other bigger work that you do. This is for your own projects and pet projects, and especially if there's anything that you make or anywhere where you directly express your creative self. If that is your business, then business is going to boom. So it does look like you're spending more on your creative output, but you're also gaining more from it as well. So keep yourself indulged in that. It's going to work for you, and it's going to unexpectedly pay you back in all sorts of interesting ways. You might end the month pretty much in the same financial state as you began it, but so far so good. Well, Ramaphosa and Magashula are not the only Scorpios entering into somewhat difficult situations at the moment. Scorpio, this could be a challenging month for you. It looks like there's lots of stuff that you have to do rather than stuff that you want to do, and some of that has to be done. And it also looks as if you are somewhat vulnerable at this time. For most of us, that means vulnerable to allergies and illnesses, outside forces that sometimes get us down. That can be things like infections or anywhere where you're just overwhelmed by what's going on around you. And that also means that you've got to be aware and perhaps careful of the people around you. It might not be that they're aiming for you directly, but it certainly can be that you are going to be on the receiving end of the kind of collateral damage that comes from you're not being served by the people or environment around you. You know, many of us have heard that we're supposed to kind of stay home and regroup our forces during this month, and that would be ideal if you can find a way to do that. But looking at your chart, it looks like you're going to be really busy. So just make sure you take care of yourself, you don't overdo it, that you've got good support systems around you, and that you've got good let off steam around you. And like that, you'll be able to get through the month as strong as you need to be. Sagittarius is indeed a lucky sign, and this is one of those lucky months for you. Things continue to work really well for Sagittarians at the moment. Your personal life looks really good. That's both your significant other relationship as well as friends and other important people around you. It really looks like you're gaining a lot from the people around you, and that you're still going to stand to gain a lot more. Some of that is financial gain. Partnerships and those kind of cooperative efforts will really pay off. You might even find yourself getting money from unexpected or surprising sources, or even if it's not money, some kinds of gain or help. Astrologically, we're always fascinated about things like the difference between our inner needs, but as opposed to how we act out in the world. And there's often a disconnect between those things. But Sagittarius, you have got it right this month. What you're thinking about, what you're planning, how you're getting it into the world, and how you're roping in all the forces around you, all of that really seems to work. Take advantage of that to reflect a little bit on those inner needs and inner feelings. It's great that the world out there is also helpful and amazing at this time. Why don't you capitalize on that by spending some quiet time in there and getting yourself onto that strong inner page where you don't really need anything from the outer world. Do it when you're at your strongest. Capricorn, you've got to try and plod along a little bit this month. It does look like you might be depending on people and things that you're not really going to be seeing very much of. So rather than investing any depending on people outside of you, money outside of you, or resources outside of you, you're probably going to have to wait a little bit longer. Certainly, it is still quite a good time for money. It's not really a money problem. It's just where you depend on any input or any resources from people around you that you're going to have some of that problem. Maybe it's just a timing problem, because it does look as if you're able to gather a lot of help and support at this time. So should you need it, it is there for you, although Capricorns are not inclined to look for that help or support. But really, it still says, well, even so, the results from that are going to take a little longer than you think. All in all, Capricorn, the lesson is things are taking longer than you think. Plod along doesn't mean dull and boring. It just means persisting quietly and expecting good results later on down the line, because they will come. Just be sure to manage your own resources. Don't rely heavily on those outside of you, and you'll be stressless till you get to next month. For Aquarians, it looks like a month of opportunities, but the challenge will be turning those opportunities into something real. So some of them are going to fall by the wayside, and you might be offered things that don't follow through. Don't be alarmed by that. It's definitely part of the pattern of there's lots of opportunity and there's stuff coming in from all around. In fact, what looks best for you are things that come from far away, or from foreigners, or anything that's a little bit exotic that way. So look out for that. But that doesn't mean accept all and sundry. There are people right now around you who are deliberately or not trying to take advantage of you. Realistically, they're probably not out to get you in any kind of a way, but it does mean you need to hang on to what you've got and make sure that you're not too generous or too sacrificing at this time, because that's often where we go wrong. So rather explore opportunities that don't have too much cost associated with them, where you're not expected to contribute too much and you don't depend on too much coming back to you. It's all about broadening your horizons. Could be a great time to be learning something new, or just reading. Sometimes we don't need to move forward all the time. We need to expand and enrich ourselves. Aquarius, this is one of those times. And Pisces, this looks like one of those months where you've got to persist, even though you can't quite tell what's the results of your persistence. It's always difficult as a Piscean to link the outcome of what you do with how you went about doing it, because sometimes Pisceans take all sorts of creative routes to get to where they're going. And indeed, that is a strategy that will continue to work for you. It's not a bad strategy in any way, but nevertheless, it might be a little bit confusing. So this means you just got to put your head down and persist. enthusiasm, spontaneity, and even a little bit of rushing in where angels fear to tread will really work for you at this time as well. So that really means courage. Be willing to go for it. Don't wait for everything to be in place. That's kind of easy for Pisces, but don't wait for other people to guide you. Pisceans are too busy going with the flow and being easy and accommodating, and often at times like this you fail to take advantage of that enthusiasm and spontaneity, especially if you get a little bit of bad feedback because people think you're crazy or you're not doing it right. Ignore all of that. You're really going to succeed if you push yourself forward this month. Stop looking for the results. Get on with the process. We'll talk about results next month, but the process is really working for you, so keep at it. Well, looks like the stormy season might be continuing for a while, but hopefully you will keep dry, both from the rain and from everything that's going on around you. And I'll see you again next week.